We're covering a few basics today, talking about choosing and orienting our anchor carabiners for safety. Hi there, I'm Jason. Over the last few months, we have been focused on a few short series. One on rappelling or lowering, basically about being able to bail safely if you are going to do multi-pitch climbs, and one on using various rope techniques over moderate terrain. Those topics can get nuanced, and there is always another layer of knowledge to dig into. So today we are, backing up a bit and talking about some of the basics. If you are going to do any climbing on terrain that is even approaching vertical, you are going to need to use an anchor. While there are plenty of videos about building anchors and using mnemonics like Serene or Earnest to help us think through the anchor construction, I've noticed a bit of a gap in discussions on orienting our carabiners as part of this process. So today we are focusing on the carabiners we place on our anchor setups and those we use as our attachments to the anchor. There are some subtleties that are worth understanding. Let's start with a simple principle. If it is a potential single point of failure, we want to use a locking carabiner. But like most principles, don't read it as a rule. So let's look more closely at that and talk about it and some other concepts. At a 2-point anchor, I feel comfortable using non-lockers as long as I am also building a redundant anchor configuration. For an example, if I make a ponytail master point and one leg of the anchor fails, the other leg still functions to catch a fall. But if I were, say, slinging a tree with a Connecticut tree hitch, and there is only one anchor point and one carabiner in place holding the system together, I'm definitely using a locker. Of course, there are exceptions. Some climbers will only feel comfortable with lockers at anchor connection points. That's fine. And then there are climbers, such as myself, that kind of follow a hybrid principle. If I'm setting a top rope anchor, and so will not be near the anchor to monitor it, I will use lockers for added security. Okay, so we've chosen a carabiner for the anchor points. Now we need to add them. Let's talk about the ideal by focusing on this right anchor point. I will almost always orient my carabiners by clipping the wide or working end up and with the gate facing the rock, and then flip the carabiner over so that the wide end is now facing down and the gate is away from the rock. Here are the advantages. First, if I'm using a screw gate locker, gravity is now helping the locker stay closed rather than working against it. Also, the wider end is now down and ready to accept other materials, and sometimes a lot of material, so having the wider end down gives more space for connections. In addition, if I'm clipping to bolts, which can cut grooves in the aluminum, I now am always subjecting the same narrow side of the carabiner to that potential damage, which means my working end doesn't have any cuts or splinters that might damage my rope or other soft goods. We also get an added benefit of the gate facing away to the right of the other anchor point. There are two advantages to this. With the gate facing away from the rest of the anchor, that also means the spines are facing towards all of that stuff. That keeps the inward force caused by the load directed towards the strongest part of the carabiner, the spine. And also, with the gate facing right and away, as things get complicated within the geometry of the anchor as I add new people and equipment, I can always easily access the gates and am also less likely to bump them accidentally open. Unless, of course, there's an unless, because principles can't be rules. If I have a rock over to the side of the anchor that threatens to press on the gate, I will still make sure that the wider working end is down, but I'll orient the gate away from the known threat, so in that case, turning the gate to face towards the rest of the anchor. Of course, I lose the advantages of the spine orientation and the potential clutter issue, which takes us to some trade-offs. Let's look at the left bolt. In this case, the hanger opening orientation means that if I face the carabiner towards the wall and then spin it so the working end is on bottom, the gate wants to face rightward or towards the other anchor point. Again, spine orientation and clutter become an issue. The same thing could happen due to the orientation of any gear you might place on a trad climb. So you might not always get the ideal circumstance. That means I am now left to choose between whether I think it is the greater risk to have the gate facing the wall and being pressed open, or the gate facing the rest of the anchor and suffering some of the consequences of that. Now that we've built our anchor, we need to connect to it. If I'm using the rope to connect myself, I will want to use an HMS carabiner with a wide working end so that it can easily accept my clove hitch. And it's a locker because it's a potential single point of failure. So again, working end up and gate facing the wall, make my clip, and then flip it. So my working end is down, the screw gate is working with gravity, and the gate faces out and away from danger. The same process is used for adding my belay device if that is what I'm doing. Though there is the extra step of making sure that the belay device has the rope strands facing out and towards the climber below. If I'm using a sling, lanyard, or personal anchor system, then I should have a locker at the end of that material. If it's a lanyard, it may have a carabiner fixed with the working end away from the leash. So we may just connect the working end directly to the anchor without the flip, but I try to make sure the gate is facing up and away from the wall. And finally, if we are building a top rope anchor, I will usually use two opposite and opposed lockers to capture the rope. Again, I want the added security. So by definition, one gate will be facing out and another will be facing in. And you can watch a whole video we did about ascending a route and then setting up a top rope anchor while staying secure. Even among equally safety-conscious climbers, some of these rules of thumb are going to feel more important than others. Which of these are most important to you? Tell us about it in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and share if you want to support us. For more information, you can go to our website at www.shortguysbetaworks.com. You can check out one of our rappelling videos on multi-pitch rappel transitions, or check out our entire rock climbing series. We'll see you next week and keep on getting more out of that big outside.